You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
Touchdown! A.J. Brown! An interception by the Eagles! He is hit. They got him again! They got him back at the 26. He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles!
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to episode 202 of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Eric Reese, Morgan Burkett, and our special guest today. Forgive me if I butchered the last name, Bill. I have a thing with last names. Bill Colarulo. How you feeling, man?
All good, man. You nailed it, too. It's not an easy one. Happy to be here, guys.
There we go. I had the nerves going up and down my body at that moment. Oh, God. Eric, long time no see, man. How you been?
I've been doing great. A little bit better than the Flyers in the past stretch here. I would say I've been doing better than them, but nonetheless, I'm ready to talk some Eagles football while we're covering some Flyers tonight.
Nice. Morgan with the freshie. What's going on, man?
Yeah, man, I had to do it. Episode 200, I should have got done then. But, 2 episodes late. I mean, episode 202 is episode 202, right? So, I had to do it. And, it's nice to be back. Honestly, I'm getting real fired up for this draft. It's kind of ramping up to be a really exciting one for the Eagles. So I'm excited to start talking about it because I know we kind of touched on it in the past, but it seems like we're going to get into it now that free agency is, not done, but kind of smoothing over a little bit.
It is. It's calming down. I mean, the Eagles had a hell of a first wave, which we covered, them signing Saquon Barkley, Bryce Huff. They were still busy over the weekend, which kind of a rarity for the Eagles. Devin White, linebacker out of Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 26 years old, coming off a couple down years, but there's optimism there, right? There has to be an upside where it seems like he was going through a lot in Tampa. That's, obviously behind closed doors, and he's excited to be here. He's excited to get to work. Is there still hope for Devin White to be actually a potential impact for the Eagles defense?
I like the move because I think it's low risk, high reward. They're not giving up a ton of money or a ton of cap space. But for me, I still think they got to do something at linebacker because last season they went into the year with a bunch of question marks. We didn't know what we had in Nakobe Dean. We didn't know what we were going to get out of Nick Morrow. They realized in training camp they didn't have enough. They brought in Miles Jack, who ended up retiring. They brought in Zach Cunningham, who played decent. But you're doing the same thing this year. Nakobe Dean, still a question mark. Devin White, still going to be a question mark. I'm hopeful with a change of scenery and good coaching staff that he's going to play well. But again, it's a could be. Ben Van Sumeren played fullback a couple years ago. Zach Baun only played about 27% of the snaps in New Orleans. He may even be somewhat of an edge rusher here. So for me, it's still a bunch of question marks. And we're getting excited about the draft. Even if they draft a linebacker, it's going to be a question mark because he's a rookie. So I want to see them bring in a proven veteran. There's just not much left in the free agent market. They may have to make a trade for one.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really going to be answering kind of two questions at once and just seeing how Nakobe Dean bounces back because I think that really allows Devin White to kind of do what he's good at and play pass coverage. And obviously both linebackers are going to have to do both things. But Nakobe Dean, really good at flying to the football, just, missed some opportunities last year. Obviously he was dinged up throughout the year and really just didn't make that leap we wanted him to. But I think this is an opportunity, definitely, setting the stage for a good tandem if they can both kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. And I think one of the things that regardless Devin White's going to bring to the table is he played in a pretty fantastic defense for a while. And so he does bring that veteran presence. I'm hoping that can help Nakobe Dean. But I really think a lot of what Nakobe Dean's able to do is going to depend on how well Nakobe Dean bounces back. What Devin White's able to do is going to be based on how Nakobe Dean is able to bounce back. And I think the Eagles are kind of depending on the fact that he's going to take that step. But, like Bill said, it's just been a question mark. I would like to see that question answered going into the season. But it seems almost as if the Eagles are willing to kind of roll the dice again. Year after year, they do the same thing. But who knows? Like, it would be nice to bring in a veteran. Again, there's not that many options, but at least they have to address it somewhat in the draft. They have to add, because there's no depth. Let's be honest here. Like, you bring in Oren Burks, you bring in Zach Bond. Those guys, if they're anything more than special teamers, you're probably not in a great situation.
The interesting, too, like with Devin White, is what he did really well in Tampa was blitz the quarterback. But he was playing for a defensive coordinator and a head coach in Todd Bowles who blitzes like crazy. You're not going to get that with Vic Fangio, we don't think. Maybe Fangio surprises us, but they don't usually bring their inside linebacker. So it'll be interesting to see how they use Devin White here in Philly.
And there's a little bit of an extra wrinkle to that as well, because I think that kind of is the same sort of situation, the same problem that you have with Hassan Reddick is, is you got a guy that's primarily used for pass rushing, but this is the defense that we saw at least last year. If we're led to believe that Desai was a disciple, if you will, of Fangio, and we were always, seeing we were seeing Hassan Reddick drop back, and it was just not like exactly how he fit the defense. It puts more of an onus in the draft that you have to do something additional with the linebacking group. To me, the guy has never really hasn't really. There's been no one else that that I would draft, and besides Trotter. I think for obvious reasons, he's just my draft crush, really, at the end of the day. But it's just. That's to me who you go for, and you just kind of reserve a pick and you just make the gamble. But yeah, as far as your point, Morgan, with Nakobe Dean, like what he can do is going to alleviate a lot of what White is available to do. And I do like the signing as far as getting White, because I don't believe that the way that he just kind of disappeared in the postseason is a true value for what is left in his career.
And you kind of touched on a little bit of a sensitive topic. We'll get to Kenny Pickett in a second, but Hassan Reddick, it still hasn't been figured out. My heart's still tugging right now. Because if I see number 7 play elsewhere, I feel like it's kind of a mistake on the Eagles' part. I know he's commanding big money, and I think the idea of him getting paid $25 million at his age is it's not outrageous, but in Philadelphia, it's not a norm. How do we feel about the fact that the Eagles have still yet to make a move on Reddick? They did restructure Sweat, but they haven't made a move on Hassan Reddick at all. And I mean, personally, I feel like if a pass rush loses a guy like Reddick, you're really kind of setting defense a little bit more back than you expected in 2024.
Maybe it's because he's asking for a little bit too much money, and we're trying to, we understand what he brings as a rusher, but we're suspect about his run game on defense. So I think there's a little bit to say, hey, if the price comes down, we'll snatch it up real quick. But the bag that he wants is not what Philadelphia's ready to commit to.
Yeah, I really would love to see them work something out with Reddick, because, yeah, I mean, you look at the defense, as exciting as the Bryce Huff move is, it's not as exciting if you lose Reddick, because it's almost kind of a 1-for-1, not even a 1-for-1, because Bryce Huff, at least right now, isn't as good as Hassan Reddick. Maybe he can get there. That's the hope. But you lose a guy like Reddick, who was arguably your best defensive player last year. But the real issue here was we knew he wasn't happy last year with his contract. He thought he was underpaid last year. But the difference was he only had a cap hit of $7 million last year. This year, his cap hit jumps to $22 million. So you knew going into the offseason, not only was he going to want a new deal, the Eagles didn't want him back on a $22 million cap hit. So they wanted to agree on an extension, but he's not going to agree to an extension unless he gets paid a ton of money. So I liked what the Eagles did. Hey, go out there, see if another team's willing to pay you. I still, from what I'm hearing, there have not been a team that's willing to pay him what he wants. So I still think there's a chance, but the restructure of Josh Sweat makes it less of a chance. But if a team's not willing to pay him the big money he wants, well, then maybe they work something out here in Philadelphia. So I still have hope, but them delaying that roster bonus wasn't a great sign.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, we kind of talked about it as well. Like, I don't think the Eagles really could have handled it much different. Like, I think that being kind of a player-friendly front office, you kind of have to let him go and see what's out there. Like, I think that's only fair. I don't think that I think a lot of people are kind of looking at like maybe that was a red flag, but I really don't think that if you're Hassan Reddick, you're a professional, you've been in this league for a long time. I don't think that sets you off. I think that that's really what you wanted. You wanted a front office that was willing to let you go out there and search for a deal. And if you can find one, I'm sure that would have been an amicable, break. It sucks. It would suck to lose him, but realistically, he has been underpaid for the last 2 years. He took a hometown discount to come here originally, and so it's only fair. But I think there is a good reason, like Bill said, that he hasn't gotten that deal, right? So that is a good sign. That the roster bonus being delayed, like that is pretty tough. I think it's just a matter of the Eagles kind of balancing, right, the now and the future, right? You can't really just start shelling out money. You are in a position where you might still have to add to this roster pretty significantly. So, it's a tough situation to be in. But, I mean, talking about what he would mean to this defense, I mean, we talk about versatility in a lot of positions, right? But we don't necessarily talk about versatility in rushing the passer. And Hassan Reddick's just able to get it done in so many different ways. And you talk about a defense that wants to be multiple, that wants to, add variety to how they rush the passer. Like, he would just be a perfect fit, for what the defense was supposed to be last year. I'm sure it will be this year. So losing him would be a massive loss. So I hope they can get something done.
Yeah, and I think you need that rotation on the edge because they didn't have it last year. So when they had no depth, you saw what happened. As good as Reddick was, as good as Sweat can be, they hit a freaking wall. So you had no pass rush towards the end of the season. Didn't help they were being dropped in coverage a little bit, but I think they need that depth. It'd be nice to be able to have a rotation with Bryce Huff, Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, and maybe Nolan Smith taking that leap in year 2. That could be exciting with Brandon Graham, playing about 20% probably of the snaps this year.
And I think I'm very curious to see what it is that Reddick would get. Not Reddick, the Eagles would get on the market for Hassan Reddick. I mean, the Giants traded for Brian Burns, and I think it was a second and a fifth, if I'm not mistaken, or a third and a fifth.
I think it's a second and a fifth, and then they did a fifth. They did a fifth round swap as well, I believe.
Yeah,
but I don't think they're going to get a ton for Reddick, unfortunately, because it's going to come with a brand new deal, just like Brian Burns did. So I'd be shocked if they got a second in the deal. I would.
I would probably, because of that, Bill, it's probably expect a third even. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a third.
I mean, saying a third and a fifth is what I think would be probably best case scenario, but
yeah.
Highly unlikely at this rate. But another thing that was considered highly unlikely is Kenny Pickett being traded to the Philadelphia Eagles over the weekend. Eagles did check in with Justin Fields, and for not too many people that noticed, I believe Justin Fields' option is about $25 million, opposed to Kenny Pickett's, which is pretty much pennies on the dollar at this rate.
Yep.
Eagles secure QB2, no competition for QB1, obviously, but this is something I feel like Philadelphia really needed after shelling out so much money to Mariota last season and kind of seeing what Mariota wasn't able to really do for Philly. But having a guy like Pickett for the next 2 seasons that could develop and actually grow with the offense, is this a home run move for Philly, or is this kind of just a, under the rug kind of move?
Yeah, this is like a base hit, maybe a double. Like, if we're talking in baseball terms here. This is a team he wants to be at. He grew up a fan, so there's that story. But it's also, he's getting paid, less than $1 million this year. Mariota got paid $5 million to sit there and not really have much to do. Actually, in fact, last year I wanted Tanner McKee to get more snaps than Mariota. So the fact that we're now paying, or not we're now paying, like, it's not my money, but he's getting paid $4 million less to do the same role. I actually love Pickett in this sense because that's the guy you want to develop. He has age on his side, and you're right. He's not going to be competing for Hurts' job at any point. But if Hurts were to miss time, ask yourself this question: do you have more faith in Mariota last year to win you a few games, or do you have more faith in Kenny Pickett? I have more faith in Kenny Pickett.
I mean, his career, he's 14-10. I know he played with a better team than Justin Fields, but he's 14-10 in his career. And Justin Fields, I think, is 10-28 in his career. Now, that's all relative because of who they've played with. But the control is what I like here, because Brian mentioned the $25 million fifth-year option. The Eagles would have had to have exercised that fifth-year option by May 2nd of this season. So they weren't going to do that. So he would have came in really only on this 1-year deal, his final year of his deal. You weren't going to keep him for 2. You get Kenny Pickett because he was drafted a year later. You have him under his cheap 4-year rookie contract for the next 2 seasons. So you have more control. You can develop him. You hopefully never see him play, but if in the preseason he does some things, maybe you turn around and you're able to trade him for an asset. Who knows? You weren't getting that type of control with Justin Fields. And I was hopeful when I watched Justin Fields as a rookie that he was going to grow into something. I don't think he's that good. I don't think he's done anything in his career where people in this city are freaking out that the Eagles didn't make this move. Other than some highlight reels, which he gives you with his ability to run the football, I kept asking on my shows, what has he done that leads people to be this upset that the Eagles didn't trade for him? And I think there was the other misunderstanding. Oh, well, you gave up a 3rd-round draft pick for Pickett, and Fields was only a 6th-round pick. You didn't give up a 3rd-round pick because you got Pittsburgh's 4th-round pick back. So all you did was drop 22 slots, and then you gave up 2 7th-rounders in next year's draft. So, there was some misunderstanding about this deal. But when you look at the contract and you look at all the other issues, and then the on-field play, I think this was more of a home run move than if they would have signed Fields.
Yeah. I mean, I don't exactly know the numbers, but Fields must be the most expensive backup quarterback in the NFL right now, right? And so the Eagles just aren't in a position to take that on. And I don't know, like if there is some solace in the Kenny Pickett, pickup as a backup, like you wouldn't know it by his time in the NFL, but in college, like the one thing that he didn't do much of was make mistakes, right? So he made his reads quick, he got the ball out fast, and essentially, like for an NFL quarterback, that's what you want, right? And I think Bill touched on a great point. Like I think we're constantly shocked by the short-term memory of the NFL staff and front office, right? Like we had Josh Dobbs, be a star one week and then benched like 2 weeks later and go on this run. Like there's so many times these quarterbacks kind of come out of the blue and then fade off and vice versa, right? And so you're able to kind of shelter Kenny Pickett from all the noise for a bit and let the world forget about his last 2 seasons. You can get a lot of draft pick potential from trading him off. If he has a decent preseason, maybe he doesn't have to play too much, but comes in for some snaps here and there, doesn't make many mistakes. All of a sudden, a team loses a quarterback, they need someone. Well, you just got back your 3rd-round pick, right? Or more. You never know, right? So I think this is a great pick. You kind of harken back to, Howie Roseman's wanting to be a QB factory. Well, this is one of those where you have value here, right? There's definitely value. Realistically, you traded him, again, you drop down, 40 picks,
22.
Maybe 30. 20, there you go. Way less, right? You drop down 22 picks. In the future, this may pay massive dividends, right? If you're able to offload him. Worst case scenario, he sticks on the roster and you have a backup QB for the next couple of years. And, there's no one, and we say it all the time, there's no one that knows how important a QB2 is like Philadelphia.
Yeah. But like the people who are upset they didn't get Justin Fields, I keep asking as well, you realize that every team in the NFL had a shot to make that trade. Some teams who needed a quarterback a lot more than the Eagles, a lot more than the Pittsburgh Steelers needed a quarterback, and nobody was willing to give Chicago better than a 6th-round draft pick for Justin Fields. That should tell you all you need to know about what the NFL thinks of Justin Fields as a starting quarterback. He's not as good as some people are building him up to be.
He's a very athletic quarterback, and then in my mind, what I think of Justin Fields is, man, when I see other fantasy teams with them on their team, they might beat me. That's mostly what I think about Justin Fields. I mean, you're right. When I do watch, a Chicago Bears game, I'm never thinking that I'm going to be floored by his quarterback play. So that's absolutely true. As far as the 6th-round pick being what was, pretty much served up for Fields, to get basically that trade. I'm a little bit surprised that it was just a 6th-round pick, but it is what it is. I guess that's, the market, and that's what the rest of the league felt.
I think it has the potential to turn into a 4th-rounder, right? If he plays like 51% of the game.
Is it conditional?
It's conditional.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think unless Russell Wilson gets hurt, I doubt he's reaching that. It's also just like you pay for his contract. That's a big part of it, right? So that's pretty massive. And then, there's those reports coming out that he wanted to go to Pittsburgh. And so they did right by him. And if that's the case, then all bets are off, right? If that was always in the plans, then it didn't matter what the Eagles offered. Not that they should have offered more, but it didn't matter what the Eagles offered if he wanted to go to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's truth to that they probably sent him somewhere he wanted to go. but the draft capital that was being offered was probably similar. I doubt if somebody swooped in and said, hey, we're going to give you a 3rd-round draft pick, they would have been like, nah,
Right.
we're going to send them to Pittsburgh for a 6th. You know,
sure.
so I'm sure they helped them a little bit, but they're not that nice, these NFL teams.
So speaking of not that nice, I've seen obviously your videos, Bill. And I'm curious to where you stand on, because I feel like we disagree on one thing. You don't think the Eagles need to invest in a cornerback at this moment because of the young talent that they have?
That was the one position that I said when I looked at the defense, I had corner 4th on my list. I wanted safety, linebacker, edge rusher depth. Even if they brought back Sweat and Reddick, I wanted another edge rusher. And then I had corner. And the reason why is not only because some of the young talent, but you still have Darius Slay coming back, who I still think is playing above average level. You have Keely Ringo, who I thought was really good last year as a rookie. I'm excited to see what he does in year 2 with Vic Fangio now, who's from all accounts a great teacher. You also have Isaiah Rodgers, who should be reinstated, that the Eagles picked up last offseason. See, I looked at Isaiah Rodgers as he was their big free agent acquisition this year for corner because he wasn't on the roster last year, and he was that good when he was in Indianapolis in 2022. And you also have Zach McPherson coming back from IR, who a lot of people in the Eagles organization were high on last year, but he blew out his Achilles in training camp. So I looked at the secondary, at least from the cornerback position. I'm thinking, okay, you got Darius Slay, Keely Ringo, Isaiah Rodgers, Zach McPherson. I thought Eli Ricks battled when he was out there as well. So I like the corners. For me, it was safety, linebacker, edge rusher as priorities. Now, I'm not going to be angry if they draft a corner in the 1st round. There's a lot of good corners in this draft. So I'm not going to be upset if they do. They haven't drafted a corner since, what is it, like 2002 when they took Lito Shepard in the 1st round. So I won't be upset if they do that, but I didn't think they needed to go out and spend big money in free agency on a corner when you got all that talent, at least in my opinion.
There goes my Jalen Johnson dreams, crushed by Bill.
Yeah.
But I mean, you left a cornerback out of that mix.
James Bradbury? Yeah, I don't need to see James Bradbury again, man.
I
mean, do we feel like it could be a redemption season for him under
No.
actual Fangio, or is it kind of just like wash where it's like,
I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense. I know a lot of fans want him cut. A lot of fans want him gone. It didn't make sense to do anything at least pre-June 1st, because if he's on the roster, he counts 4.35 against the cap. If they were to cut him before June 1st, it actually skyrockets his dead cap number up to 15. So there was no way they were doing anything before June 1st. You're not going to lose $11 million in cap space by cutting the guy. So if they do anything, maybe they move on after June 1st, but you still don't save anything. He's 4.3 if he's on the roster. He's 4.3 if you cut him. So they may keep him for that exact reason. Maybe he bounces back. I mean, he was very good in 2022, but it just looked like he forgot how to play or lost a step, man. So if I don't see JB again, I'm not going to be crying.
I mean, I really don't think he hurts your team unless he's starting, right? And so I think, like, as you know, as many young, athletic, talented corners as they have, like, he does help that room get better. And so I think you keep those kind of guys around. If, you know, again, minimal cap hit, you know, you could cut them. I think that's going to really depend on whether or not how many corners they bring in the draft, right? You only have so much room in that room. So, but, you know, I don't think he hurts your team if he's, you know, your backup corner. Worst case scenario, one of those young guys, you know, Darius Slay gets injured, and he's a pretty serviceable backup, probably one of the better ones in the league at this point, right? Again, you know, we hope that he bounces back and isn't as terrible as he was last year. But yeah, like, even looking at what was available, and, you know, I know you like Jalen Johnson, Brian, but the cornerbacks that were available, it didn't seem like a better option than addressing it in the draft. And, you know, you kind of look at the way this draft is falling as well. Like, there's going to be talent, whether it's in the 1st round or in the 2nd round, that you can bet on. And I think the problem that the Eagles have right now is not necessarily, you know, the depth at corner. Like, I think they have a lot of good options as a number 1 corner, and you don't have a Devin Witherspoon in this draft. As talented as these young corners are, for the most part, I think they take a little more time. Now, you can throw them in the fire and they might turn out, but I mean, like Bill said, again, the Eagles aren't really ones to take a chance on a 1st round corner. That could change this year, and there's some good options to do that with. But it just seems the way that the corners at the top of the draft have been coveted, they might go early. There might be a run on them early, and I can't see the Eagles reaching for any. I think they're going to let the draft fall to them. They're in a good position to do so. So if they get one of those corners, fantastic. But I think if they don't, they're still in a good position to maybe pick one up in the day 2 of the draft, or just ride with the young guys they have.
So the Eagles have the 5th most amount of cap space available, which is
but I think there's still stuff to be factored into that.
Right. So I was going to ask you, how much money do you think will be left over of that?
I think I saw something like 22 million or something like that.
If I'm not mistaken, it was tweeted out that it's about $22 million right now.
And $22 million is just kind of hovering to,
we'll have to use some of that on rookies.
Okay.
You got to remember they also had to pay us out as well.
That's fair.
I do
ask for a lot. Actually, if it's so, do you think that how much was it again for James Bradbury to be dumped?
4.3.
If they dump him before first, it would cost $15 million in dead cap. If they do it with a post June 1st designation, it's about 4.1. He's 4.3 if he's on the roster. Actually, it's 4.3 if you cut him. 4.35 if he's on the roster. So you really don't save anything.
I'd do it.
I
would do it.
Morgan was saying, you really only do it if you think you need the roster spots. I mean, there's really no harm in bringing him into training camp, seeing what he's got left, and then maybe cutting him then, because you're not saving any money. It's not like you're really losing much by keeping him. Now, if another team is dumb enough to trade for him, which I don't think they will, not with that contract. So other than that, you're probably going to have him here, because why wouldn't you? It's just another body at camp, and maybe he comes back and he's in shape, and you're like, you know what, we can use this guy off the bench, or if somebody gets hurt. I don't think he really plays special teams, so that could hurt him in making this team. But I just don't think there's a rush to cut him. It doesn't really do much for you, in my opinion. He's not a bad locker room guy. He's liked.
No, he's definitely not. Yeah. He's very well liked in the locker room.
That might be the part that saves him, because in my mind, unless he comes back in shape like Captain America, like, give me a first-round corner. Like, that's where I'm at, because I think that it's more important to rebuild instead of, next season he's way more expensive, by the way. So if you sticks around and he wins the heart back, I don't want him. I think
there's something to be said.
On.
Like, I don't know. Again, I try not to feed into the rumors, but there's those things coming out from Sirianni, right? Or not from Sirianni, but about Sirianni, about favoritism and all that stuff in the locker room. That's the one area where I see, if he's penciled in as a starter going into the season, right, and that causes kind of some rift, right? I think it's time for the young guys to get that opportunity. So if Sirianni's wearing rose-colored glasses, and let's hope that he just allows Vic Fangio to kind of control that defense and who makes it and who's starting. Because I think that, Vic Fangio's been around long enough that I think he sees through whatever James Bradbury, because you get a lot of these veterans, they look fantastic in camp, right? They're going to look fantastic in camp. They're going to look heads above, right? The young guys that still need some time to acclimate. And so I think Vic Fangio sees through that. So I hope that he leaves that. But that's the one area where I worry about, those kind of rumors of favoritism and all of that coming back up. But again, those are just rumors. I don't really think that causes a rift in the locker room.
So I know we have a couple minutes left for you, Bill, before you jump off. I do have one more question for you. Eagles, well, first and foremost, what is your favorite move thus far in free agency for the Eagles? And then do you feel like Philly should stay aggressive as they are right now, or kind of just take a little bit of a step back, breathe a little bit, and then just build strategically from here on out?
So I know it sounds crazy. You guys may agree with me, too, that this was your favorite move, but I never thought a running back would be my favorite move, because that's just not what you do in today's NFL. But bringing in Saquon Barkley is just freaking awesome, man. I mean, I absolutely love it, because I just love what he's going to do to this offense. We've never seen the guy play with those type of weapons. I mean, you look at his career with the Giants, and you look at the leading receivers he had on his offense. Outside of his rookie season, he never played with a wide receiver that had more than 751 yards in a season. You go back to his rookie year, Odell had over 1,000. That was really the only good wide receiver he played with. Well, it's no coincidence. Odell has over 1,000, and Saquon's got 1,300 yards rushing, 5 yards a carry, 91 catches, another 700 yards, over 2,000 scrimmage yards. So I just can't wait to see this guy who is a true 3-down back with AJ, Devontae, Dallas Goedert, that offensive line, Jalen Hurts. So I'm so excited about that. But I think they have to stay aggressive. I think you don't make a move like Saquon Barkley. You don't bring in a defensive coordinator as old as Vic Fangio, an offensive coordinator like Kellen Moore, if this isn't a year where you're going for it. So if we're going for it, and they still do have some cap space, that's why I still would like to see them not only bring in a linebacker, I think they need to make another move at safety. And I saw people in the chat asking about Justin Simmons. I just don't think you can go into the season, as much as I like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, with CJ and Reed Blankenship, because we know Reed's been up and down. He's also been hurt. CJ has been hurt. And then you got Sidney Brown, who I love, but he just tore his ACL in week 18. So I think you should stay aggressive in those two areas. And while we're being aggressive, figure something out with Reddick too.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of shell shocked about the Saquon move. I'm still bragging about it.
Yeah,
I'm so hyped for it. I think a lot of it is I just hope he rubs Tiki Barber's face in it.
So
I think that's a lot of it.
I got Tiki's cell phone number. We got a mutual friend. I texted him. You
can tell him I said that.
Yeah, I texted him when it was all going down. And I said, you're the talk of the town in Philly. He said, 17 years retired, and I'm still annoying the hell out of all of you. So I'm trying to get him to come on my show. But yeah, he knows what he's doing, Tiki.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's great at it.
Yeah.
He's working it the right way. But Bill, we appreciate you taking the time out to come on. We're definitely looking forward to bring you back on during draft season. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're well known out there, but for the people that are watching our show right now that don't know where to find you, if you just plug in your information and then let them know.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So you can find me on Twitter, obviously, at Bill Colarulo. I'm now hosting for 97.5 The Fanatic, so I do a show every Saturday, Sunday morning for them, and then doing some other things with them that we'll announce soon, which is cool. And then I'm live every Monday through Friday right here on YouTube, 10 to 11 a.m. with the Philly Sports Power Hour. And you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Twitter, wherever, at Bill Colarulo. So thanks for having me, guys. It was fun, man. This was, like you said, nice, relaxed podcast you got.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, everybody on the podcast gets to let their hair down, except for myself, because my hair kind of fell out.
His hair's always down.
I got the bald spot. You can't see it on YouTube, which is great.
Oh, I got the whole bald spot. You can definitely see it. But we appreciate you coming on. I mean, I feel like we're kind of signing off because we covered a lot of what's going on so far with the Eagles off season. Definitely, looking forward to next week's episode. We're gonna definitely have more guests and cover the draft a little bit more, which I know is Morgan's forte. But until then, I'm Brian Cameron alongside Morgan Burkett, Eric Reese, and Bill. Shout out to you. Thank you for joining us today, and we're flipping the birds.
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
Do we still yell at the people I missed 2 weeks?
I mean, you're the only one that yells, so it's actually your thing.
Oh, well, hell yeah. Go Birds!
Go
Yes,
Birds.
sir.
Flipping the bird.